Howdy folks, back today with another video, my first in quite some time. It's been over a month, I think, maybe even close to 2 months since my last video. I have been working hard on something else for the community. It's something that I'm really excited about, and I hope within maybe the next couple of weeks I'll be able to talk more about it. But for right now, we're going to talk about Battlegrounds. Season 30 did just finish, so I want to spend some time talking about the results of Season 30. I'll do an update on my top overall summoners that I like to do based on statistics, and then see some other statistics for Season 30 of Battlegrounds and see what that means as far as the health of the game mode and where we should go from here. So starting with Season 30, the season end ranks, we see that Steeler did take the victory. I think it's the first time that he's won, or at least in the time that I've been tracking Battlegrounds, is the first time that he's gotten the overall #1 spot. For those who are kind of monitoring the state of the Battlegrounds season, at the end, I was watching Pepe's stream. It was pretty exciting that Pepe I think was tied with Steeler, and then Pepe won a match against Barrow with maybe 15 minutes to go, and that put him in the lead. But then Steeler won his match, and then he won another match in the last 5 minutes or so, and that allowed him to take the victory. So congrats to Steeler. It was an exciting finish. Congrats to Pepe for that #2. Also a very strong finish. Andrew, coming out of retirement, apparently hasn't lost a step, was able to claim that #3 spot. Barrow, I mentioned, he had a post. I think he was a little bit disappointed because just had really unlucky RNG in his last couple of matches, but #4 is still a great overall result. Such a tough, consistent competitor. Nagase, who hasn't been in my top 30 summoners roundups because he's actually taken some seasons off. But again, he's also someone, I guess, like Andrew, that he was able to come roaring back when he wanted to, and so he got that #5 spot. Some newcomers, I think, to the top 10. Paulu Medezes, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Biwi's been top 10 before. He's really been on a roll lately. Lex either has been top 10 or very close to top 10 before, and then Cantona is definitely someone who's been top 10. So congrats to all those people, those who are just kicking butt season in, season out, right? And those who are coming back after some absence, and those who are just new, right? Really good to see that mix. So this was the first of 2 qualifying seasons for the Battleground Brawl, which is being held in, I think, November in Vancouver. The way that they're actually doing the qualifying is via these points. I'll bring up these points right now. And so it just takes some explaining. It's not completely straightforward. So you're going to get some points associated with where you placed in each one of these 2 seasons, and then they're going to combine the points and then just see who ends up having, I guess, the top 8 people with the most points who qualify will be invited to the Brawl, right? And so for finishing first, you get so many points that no matter what you do in the next season, you're automatically in. But you can see that the points scale down pretty quickly as you go down the table. So, if you're in the top 4, 5, 6 spots, you're still in very, very good position. But it opens up pretty quickly after that. You can see that, let's say if you finish in let's say you finish #9, right? And so that gives you 110 points. Versus someone who finishes 29th and gets 40 points. That's only 70 points spread. So it's basically anybody's game still, right? Anybody can still make it with a strong performance in the next Season 31. So going to be interesting to see how this season was so competitive. We'll see how Season 31 finishes off. I think that's going to be even more competitive. I did mention about being eligible, and a quick note on that. So although Steeler did finish first, let's see where it is here. So Kabam did just post this yesterday, I believe, that you see Steeler's name is not present here, and they talk about vetting, right? After a round of vetting, these are the top 8 people. And so I mentioned I was on Pepe's stream. He talked a little bit about this at the time. There were some people who were thinking that I don't want to make the focus on Steeler's past, but just to talk about it briefly, right? It's he's a conspicuous by his absence, right? Steeler has had issues with breaching TOS in the past, so some people were suspecting that possibly he wasn't going to be eligible, and it turns out, in fact, that yes, he was not. He did not pass vetting, and so Pepe is the number one, which I believe gives him that 1,000 points in the automatic bid into the Battleground Brawl. I have a couple, I don't know Steeler's past. I'm not going to talk about Steeler in particular, although obviously he's a motivating force for me talking about eligibility to begin with. There are 2 points that I want to make. One is that if whatever Steeler did, or whatever anybody does that causes them to lose eligibility, right? I would hope that if there's someone that, has been reliably a top 10, 20 finisher, and someone who realistically was going to try competing for the Battleground Brawl, or conceivably could try competing for the Battleground Brawl qualifying, that Kabam would have told you you're eligible or you're not beforehand, right? Because obviously it does take significant time, possibly even some money, right? Maybe you need to, in order to grind, you need to spend some money on units for energy refills or on shuffle tokens or whatever, right? So you can argue that these people whose eligibility may in question, they know their past, they know that there's going to be vetting, so they're taking a gamble on whether they're actually going to be judged eligible or not, right? And that's fair, but I think even if it's fair to say that, it's still ultimately, it would have been fairest of Kabam to, there's no new information here, right? It's not like Steeler is banned now. As far as I know. So whatever happened that caused him to lose eligibility, it happened in the past, happened well enough in the past that they could have told him before, or at least during the season when it became obvious that he was really gunning for it, right? That, hey, you're not going to be eligible. So I don't know if they did or not. I'm just saying that I hope that they would have done that. The number 2 thing I wouldn't want to say is that just the notion that you have to, that there's this additional round of vetting to say you're going to be eligible for the Brawl. Vetting can encompass a lot of things. It could be, okay, we're looking over like your social media history and see if you said some inappropriate things in the past, right? And okay, that I understand that you're not going to vet everybody. You're only going to vet when the time comes to it, right? The people who are in that top 10, then you're going to look to see, okay, let's do that scrutiny and see if this is someone that we want to extend that invite to. But if it is for things like terms of service breaches, I don't understand why someone would be eligible for competitive play in the first place, right? Able to play Battlegrounds, able to play Alliance War, but then not eligible just for this one tournament, just because it's, somewhat higher profile than the normal Battlegrounds season. To me, if there's any question about whether or not you're playing fairly, or that question should either be answered like, yes, you are playing fairly, in which case you're just eligible for any competitive activity that Kabam sponsors or runs, or you're not eligible, right? And so this middle ground of, well, you're eligible to play Battlegrounds, but you're not eligible for this special tournament, I don't get it. I don't work for Kabam. I don't know about what it takes or what kind of legal risks or reputational risks they run by having a tournament like this. So I am partially speaking out of ignorance, but it just seems to me as as a fan of the competitive scene that having someone who's able to play Battlegrounds but then not eligible for this Battlegrounds tournament, I don't understand it. Okay, so let's move on to an update on my view of the top overall summoners in Battlegrounds. And so to restate from previous videos, what this is I look at your season end ranking over the past few seasons. In this case, I'm doing past 7 seasons. This particular metric, which is the one I've kind of settled on as the one that I prefer, is, okay, take your season ending rank, I throw out your best result, your worst result, and then I average the rest. That's why I call it Olympic style. And then just what does that number tell us? Let's rank order and see who the top people are, right? This is not any attempt to compete with MP's list. MP's list is much better than mine because he's actually, making judgments based on who he actually faces in Battlegrounds and say who has the most skill. And this is really who's the most accomplished, right? So anyway, with all those disclaimers out of the way, so Barrowman, breaks a string of number 1 finishes, but still, a number 4 finish, he's just solidifying his hold on that number 1 spot. You can see that there's a big gap between number 1 and number 2. Biwi, so I mentioned before that he's really been on the come up. So he's someone, in my very first video, I think he was just outside of the top 10. I think he was number 11, and then he climbed to number 9 in my second iteration, and now he's all the way climbed up to number 2. So he's leapfrogged a few people. You can see 3, 4, 8. He's really had great results these past few seasons. Cantona's a familiar face. Pepe, same thing. Worse in the biz, he's someone that had a good stretch. Dipped outside of the top 10, but he's clearly someone who deserves that top 10 overall spot based on how he's been performing over the past 7 seasons. Liam, interesting case. So he was someone that had retired, and I guess he's still playing a little bit, playing enough that a person of his skill, even though he's playing probably much less than a lot of other people, still able to get top 20 to 30 season-ending results. So he's still in the top 10. Maybe it eventually will drop if he continues just playing at a more relaxed level as these older results expire, but still clearly a very, very talented player. Hidhack is someone who's been there. Simon's been in the top 10. MP, so newcomer to the top 10, so great to see him here. And Paulu, I think, also was one of the people that, like in past iterations of the list, was just outside and now does climb into the top 10. Stonehenge is just outside. Andrew, if he decides to push again in season 31 so that he can really solidify his qualifying, he can easily get back into the top 10. Lex had a strong result. Some of the people who kind of were in that top 10 but falling off. So Bury the Light, I think, was self-destruction. So he's apparently, at least for one season, wasn't really playing seriously. Canvel also, I guess, past few seasons, you can see that he was reliably top 10 to 15, and I guess is taking a step back. Steeler, my head is kind of hiding it a little bit, but he was playing kind of relaxed, but he's been, over the past 2-3 seasons, he's really been killing it. So he's another one who, just like Biwi, could very easily leapfrog a lot of people in the standings and get into that top 10. Okay, so let's move back to season 30 in particular, right, and see what some statistics can tell us about the overall state of Battlegrounds, the health of Battlegrounds. So we see that 64,000 people roughly made it to Gladiator Circuit and played at least one match. And so that number needs some context, right? Is that good? Is that bad? Where are we trending? Let's talk first pre-Radiance, right? Pre-season 28. So before season 28, I wasn't capturing the full leaderboard, so I don't have the stats myself as far as what was a typical number of people making it to Gladiator Circuit in any particular season. But I did find a forum post by DNA 3000, so he knows the stuff. I feel like it can just take at face value the statements that he makes, and he was saying that based on his data, it was between 30 and 40,000 people typically that were making it to Gladiator Circuit, and really most often closer to that 30K number. So 64K compares very well to that. However, season 28 is when I started recording full Battlegrounds season end ranks. That season, it was 112,000 people, right? Actually, let me scroll up a bit and bring those numbers into focus. So yeah, 112,000 people who played at least one Gladiator Circuit match that season. And I won't go through all these different comparisons, but you can see that across the board, we're talking about quite a reduction in activity season 30 versus season 28. This last point in each section does require a little bit of explication. So I was trying to, in my season 28 wrap-up video, get a sense of, okay, well, 112,000 people got to Gladiator Circuit, played one match, but maybe that's all they played, right? And so I was trying to answer the question of, is Battlegrounds really viable compared to like AW, AQ, other game modes, right? And so based on the data that I had access to, I came up with this a little bit slightly weird heuristic of, okay, if you either reached 100 points in your season end score, or you were active throughout the season, or at least the best that I was able to tell, which is that your first match came sometime in like the first week, and your last match came sometime in the last few days of the season, right? And so if you did one or the other, that's where I said, okay, that means that you were probably meaningfully engaging in Battlegrounds. And so it was 48,000, roughly 47,500 people that by this somewhat arbitrary measure were actively engaged in Battlegrounds. And so 2 seasons later, 10 weeks later, it's dropped to 14,000 people using that same metric, which that doesn't seem to bode well, right? That just in the span of 2 seasons, we go from everybody being excited about Radiance and maybe excited seeing Kabam Crash's post about, the future of Battlegrounds. Oh, okay, this is a mode I want to play again. And now, again, however much stock you want to put into this one metric, but 48,000 to 14,000, almost like a 75% drop in activity, or at least in the number of people who are really pushing hard, right? That doesn't sound great. What are some reasons why it might have dropped so precipitously? So let's take a look at that. Sorry. So a few different things. One thing I should mention at the top, probably should have actually mentioned it before I even started talking about this, was there was that seeding bug in season 28 and actually also in season 29, at least for the first 30-40 minutes of the season. And so to remind everybody, this bug was that if you finished in Battlegrounds in the previous season, so we're talking season 27, if you finished in Gladiator Circuit, then in season 28 you actually started in Vibranium 2, so you only had to win 5 matches to get into Gladiator Circuit. And again, so that for the first 30 or 40 minutes, those people who jumped into Battlegrounds early in season 29, they also benefited from just being able to start in Vibranium 2. So this is the first season 30, where everybody started at most in, I forget exactly where it is, Diamond 5. But it's a lot more matches that you have to win. You have to win 25, something in that range, number of matches in order to progress from now you're starting victory track tier to get to the Gladiator Circuit. At the time, when I made my season 28 wrap-up video, I was guessing, and it was really just a guess, wasn't based on any data, but I was guessing that, well, yes, that bug existed, but it probably didn't have a huge impact on the number of people who made it into Gladiator Circuit, right? The people who went and banged away and got those 5 matches, they probably would have eventually, over the course of the 5-week Battleground season, they probably would have made it to Gladiator Circuit anyway. And now I'm doubting that, right? Maybe the seeding bug had a lot more impact than I guessed at the time, right? But it's still just a guess. I don't know how big a part that played, but certainly it's a factor to consider. So number 2, the recent metas. Again, this is not any kind of quantitative judgment that I can make, but informally, based on what I see in forums, on live stream chats, right, it definitely seems like the average player, by and large, has not liked the past few metas, right? And not just from season 30. I think even back into season 29, people weren't that happy. And I did see this recent post from Kabam Crashed, where he talks a little bit about him also finding, he also found the season 31 meta quite punishing. And so he says it's one of the most skill-intensive metas we've had in a long time, by design, of course, given the Brawl qualifiers. So at the very least, it seems like it was their intent to have a, at least what the average player would find, a fairly punishing meta or series of metas, because they want to make sure that Brawl qualifiers are really trying to find the most skilled players. And that totally makes sense, but there is a cost being paid there that, well, if you have in a row, and it looks like, based on that logic, I haven't really looked in detail at the season 31 metas coming up, but stands to reason if he's saying that they want challenging metas for Brawl qualifiers. Season 31 is a Brawl qualifying season. It's going to be more challenging metas in season 31 that we have to look forward to, right? So there is some gamble there on Kabam's part that you risk turning off a sizable portion of your player base if they're trying to play the game and they're just getting frustrated and they say, well, you know what, I'd rather do other things. The rewards no longer being as desirable, which maybe sounds a little bit funny to say that they were so exciting when they were introduced in season 28. That's only 2 seasons ago, 10 weeks ago. But it's more than just, you know, the inflationary aspect of the game economy, right? That plays some role, but very little. It's much more that when in season 28, Battlegrounds was the only place that you could get Radiance, and the Radiance store was the only place that you could get the juiciest items in the game, right? T7 Basic and 7-star Sig Stones. In the time since, it was actually pretty soon after season 28, and sooner than I think Kabam even had originally indicated. Now you can get Radiance from Alliance War, you can get Radiance from Alliance Quest. So, you know, a lot of people might have said to themselves, look, I was only getting back into Battlegrounds. It's not like the mode itself really changed that much. It's really, I got back into it because the rewards were that enticing. But now if I can get Radiance sufficient, whatever, and sufficient, you know, varies from person to person, but if people feel like, you know what, I get the Radiance that I need from Alliance War, Alliance Quest, I can go back to not really focusing on Battlegrounds as much, right? That's totally illogical. And that brings me to the next point, right? Is that, yeah, there hasn't really been a meaningful change to Battlegrounds in quite some time. And I think it's not just the fact that the structure of Battlegrounds itself hasn't changed. It's that the way that Kabam, this is now me just kind of my own opinion, right? The way that Kabam has gone about champion design over the past couple of years, coming up with, you know, it's not every defender they introduce is require specialized counters, but quite a few of the defenders they've introduced really do need a specialized counter. So it really doesn't take that many specialized defenders who require specialized counters before everybody's deck starts to look exactly the same, right? Everybody wants to have those top defenders, and then, you know, I guess the factor that makes the decks even more samey, right, is that you know, some of these defenders, they only have 3 or 4 really viable counters, right? You know, some of them might have more than 3 or 4, but 3 or 4 that you would want to put in your deck, right? You don't want to put a counter in your deck who only handles one particular defender, unless you really have no other answer, right? You want to have at least some overlap. So, you know, that's when you're talking about, okay, some of these defenders only have 3 or 4 counters, where those counters are champs that you would actually want to rank up. Maybe that's the best way to put it, right? So, like I said, it doesn't take long before, you know, you have those top defenders, you have the counters for your defenders, and there's no room in your deck for any further creativity or fun, right? So so everybody's deck starts just looking the same. If you want to watch Battlegrounds live streams, it feels like you're watching the same matches over and over again. I myself, I know I've started watching Battlegrounds live streams less and less, partially because it just feels like it's the same match over and over again. When I was looking for Kabam Crashed, that first post that I pulled up, I actually found this other post that he made where he talked a little bit about something related here, right? Is that, you know, he's saying he's very happy with where the meta's gone, and he's saying drafts, at least below the very top, are a lot more diverse than they were last year. And that was surprising to me, because I was saying, well, I'm certainly not at the very top, not even close. And I still feel like in my own matches that I don't see a lot of diversity. And some, I'm not sure what he's seeing. I'm just trying to kind of read between the lines of or maybe just interpret the specifics of what he means here, because he says last year when 3 champions dominated the meta. And so, yes, okay, it's more diverse than that now it's not 3 tough defenders, it's 7 or 8 tough defenders, right? If that's the kind of diversity that he's talking about, then yeah, sure, right? But I don't think it's just the very top. Again, last season I finished somewhere around rank 2000. I didn't even play the last week or so. I just got to 200 points and then I stopped, because I myself wasn't really enjoying the meta. But yeah, even at that level, which is definitely, I don't think anybody could call that the very top, you know, I feel like, okay, yes, Bullseye, Serpent, Enchantress, Zola, yeah, even though she's new, Yelena Belova shows up a lot, Spider-Woman shows up a lot. It's the same Jean Grey, right? 7 or 8 defenders, or 7 or 8 champs that you're going to see over and over and over again. So yeah, I don't think the diversity is there. And I think that really contributes to this fatigue. So, so the question is, what is Kabam going to do about this, right? beyond just that rewards update, which was sorely overdue at the time that they did it, right? Kabam Crash did. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the forum post that he made, and one particular part of his forum post. So this is from his dev diary. It's maybe 4 or 5 months ago now at this point, that he had written about why Battlegrounds had stagnated for so long and what Kabam intends to do about it, right? And so I mentioned a few different things. One of the things that he mentioned was, okay, having new match formats, which means different, what he describes as dramatically different scoring parameters, deck sizes, band structures, etc. So the question is, by varying the parameters around Battlegrounds, can you inject a lot more diversity, a lot more? Can you make the metas really change, I guess, more rapidly than they have? And I don't have, I guess, the kind of deep game knowledge necessary to be able to really say authoritatively yes or no to that question. My gut feel is that, those scoring parameters would really have to be, he's saying dramatically different. I feel like it'd have to be, dramatically different in order for Serpent, Bullseye, Enchantress, all these different defenders to become less important, right? To become less less overpowering to the point that you would start seeing a lot meaningfully different decks, right? So I don't know. We'll see. I should also pull up not just this post from 4 or 5 months ago, but from the most recent live stream, they did give an update on what they're working on. So removal of the decline button, definitely that's a welcome change, but that's not going to move the needle for anybody. Nobody's going to now say, oh, now I want to start playing Battlegrounds again because they got rid of the decline button, right? It's a nice quality of life feature, but if we're really talking about how do we get that 64K number meaningfully up, right? Same thing, shuffle signets. That's especially for people at the top, right? I at the rank 2000 or so place, right? I don't really have a need for shuffle signets, but for those people who do like to use those, yeah, that's a very meaningful update. But again, it's not going to be a determining factor in whether someone's playing Battlegrounds or not playing Battlegrounds. Let me skip actually to this third point, Little Leagues. This is sorely overdue. It really blows my mind a little bit that Kabam has gone this long with not having some sort of viable option for people with smaller accounts to compete. Because I have an alt account that is Valiant. It is early Valiant, but still, it's a Valiant account to the last progression level, and it's tough. I can make Gladiator Circuit on it, but really, can't really get any meaningful number of points because it's just, I'm overwhelmed by the bigger decks that people have, right? So imagine people who are sub-Valiant, right? Thronebreaker players, or I think Battlegrounds is open to uncollected and above, right? So it's actually a fair number of progression levels that, yeah, you're able to play Battlegrounds, but what's the point? You're just going to be immediate. There's so many people with huge decks that you're just going to be facing unwinnable matches right from the very get-go. So yeah, Little Leagues, absolutely, I'm excited for it. I want to see it. I can't believe you haven't done it sooner, Kabam, but you know what? I'm glad that it's coming. Whitelist, blacklist updates. Again, I'm not a hardcore war player, as more of a casual war player and occasional observer of people's war videos. I don't know how much life whitelists and blacklists have injected into that mode. Even at the very top, where I think they have 5 bans that they can make, it just still feels like it's the same champs, right? But I don't want to cast judgment before it comes. If that's something that they felt was a high priority update to make, then I'm excited to see that come. They're apparently just kind of pausing on these other items, which dynamic matchmaking, I think that mostly just benefits people at the top getting shorter match times. Probably even, this problem I talked about of people with smaller decks getting just overwhelmed by bigger decks. I think it's just dynamic matchmaking probably just makes that even worse. Elo Decay, I'm surprised that they are not introducing that yet. I think that is something that is needed, even though I am someone who didn't bother playing the last week of the season. Dynamic winner loss impact by tier. Again, I don't think that was probably a game changer as far as getting people interested in Battlegrounds. So it's really apparently hinging on this new match formats. Are these new match formats really going to Are they going to change the mode enough that it starts getting people who were only playing the mode because they wanted the rewards and they don't really need that anymore? Are we going to be able to pull those people back into the mode, because now it's not just, okay, well, you need to play this in order to get the resources that you want. It's, this mode is now fun for you, right? That's what I think all of us want to see. Hopefully we get some news soon. Coming back quickly, something I did want to talk about, this new match formats, right? So the target timeline was after championship qualifiers, which at the time of the post, it was, should they happen now? Now obviously, I guess we already had the first qualifying season. So hopefully we do get it this year. Possibly, a very optimistic reading of this would be maybe these changes come after qualifiers, but before the Brawl. So they're actually, maybe the Brawl itself incorporates some of these different match formats. That would be pretty exciting. So don't want to raise anybody's hopes unfairly, right? But it's just something I was thinking about. That would be cool if Kabam did that. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for this this analysis of season 30 and the state of Battlegrounds in general. If you like this video, please do give me a like, give me some comments if there's anything that you want to give me feedback on. Please do share this video if you found it interesting. I do want to get some more subs. Again, I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks I can announce something that is going to be very useful for the community. So keep an eye out for that. All right, I'll leave it there. Have a good day. See y'all later.